I almost didn't record this. I sat down 3 times this week with this little camera propped up on a stack of books, and each time I just turned it off again, went back to the kitchen, made tea I didn't drink, stood at the window for a while. But I'm 76 now, and I've learned slowly, too slowly, that the things you almost say are usually the ones that needed saying most. So here I am, Robert Hale, 76 years old, sitting in a house that has been too quiet for 11 years. I'm not recording this because I have something to teach you. I want to be clear about that from the start. I'm not a wise man. I'm not someone who figured things out early and lived accordingly. I'm someone who figured things out late and has had a lot of quiet evenings to sit with that. My wife, Eleanor, died 11 years ago this past March, pancreatic cancer. She was gone in 4 months from the day they told us. 4 months. We were married for 41 years before that. 41 years. I say that number and it still doesn't feel real. It feels like a fact about someone else's life that I'm reporting secondhand. We met in 1971. I was working at a printing company in the evenings and taking accounting classes during the day, trying to become something respectable. She was a receptionist at a dental office 2 blocks from where I parked my car. She had this way of tilting her head slightly when she was listening to you, like she was making room for what you were saying. I noticed it the first time we talked. I noticed it the last time we talked, too, though I didn't know it was the last time. I should tell you about our life, not the highlights, the actual life. We had 2 kids, a daughter, Patricia, who lives in Portland now and calls every Sunday, and a son, David, who we lost to a car accident when he was 31. That was 2001. Eleanor and I we never fully came back from that the same way. You don't. You just learn to live alongside it. We had a house on Clearfield Road for 32 years, small backyard, a garden that Eleanor cared for and I mowed around without paying much attention to, a kitchen table where most of our real conversations happened, late at night after the news. That was our life, ordinary in the way that most lives are ordinary from the outside, heavy in the way that most lives are heavy from the inside. Here's what I've been thinking about lately. I've been thinking about presence. Not the word, I didn't know the word then, and honestly the word still feels too light for what I mean. I mean something simpler. I mean the difference between being in a room and being in a room. I spent a lot of years being in rooms where Eleanor was without being present to her. I don't say that with self-hatred. I'm too old for self-hatred. It's just what's true, and I think about it now because the rooms are empty and she isn't in them anymore. And I understand something now that I couldn't understand then. When you're in the middle of a life, you genuinely believe that there's more time, not forever. You know intellectually that people die. You've been to funerals. You understand the concept, but you don't feel it, not really, not in your bones. And so you do things like read the paper at breakfast when your wife is trying to tell you about a dream she had. You do things like go to bed early on a Friday night because you're tired from work, when she's sitting in the living room watching something she'd probably have liked company for. You do things like always defer the longer conversations. We'll talk about it this weekend. We'll have time for that later. Not tonight, I'm beat. Later. I said that word so many times in 41 years that it should have worn smooth. And then one day there was no later, and every deferred conversation was just gone. I remember a specific evening. This would have been maybe 2007 or 2008. Eleanor had come home from visiting her sister, and she was quiet in a way I recognized but didn't investigate. I knew something was bothering her. I could see it in the way she moved around the kitchen, slower, a little folded in on herself. I asked if she was all right. She said she was fine. I accepted that. We ate dinner, I watched television, she read, we went to bed, and that was it. That was the whole evening. I found out later, months later, that she'd had a hard conversation with her sister that day. About their mother's health, about old family things that had never been resolved, about something that had apparently been sitting in Eleanor's chest for a long time. She'd been ready to talk about it that night. That's why she was quiet like that. She was carrying it close to the surface. And I asked her one time, "Are you all right?" And she said fine, the way people say fine when they're hoping you'll ask again. And I didn't ask again. I've thought about that evening probably 100 times since she died. Not because it was the worst thing I ever did. It wasn't. It's because it was so ordinary. It was such a regular evening, the kind we had hundreds of, and that's what gets me, not the dramatic failures, the quiet, ordinary ones that added up. The last real conversation we had, I mean the last one where we were both fully present, both unhurried, was about 3 weeks before she died. She was in the hospital by then. Or maybe we'd brought her home by then. I can't always remember the sequence clearly, and I've stopped trying to force it. But I remember we were talking about Clearfield Road, about the house, about the neighbors we'd had, the Brennan family, and that couple who moved in around 1995 and kept to themselves. We talked about the summer Patricia turned 8, and we built a little wooden deck that I was terrible at building, and it leaned slightly for the entire time we owned the house. Eleanor laughed about that deck. It wasn't a remarkable conversation. It was just the two of us, remembering things from our shared life without any particular destination. No point to make. No problem to solve. That's the conversation I go back to most. And I think what I understand now is that the ordinary ones, the unhurried ones, the ones with no agenda, those were always the real ones. Those were the ones that actually mattered. And I was so often there for them because I was saving my full attention for something important. The something important never came. Or maybe it was always right there and I was looking past it. Patricia called last Sunday, the way she does. She asked how I was and I said I was fine. I said fine. I heard it come out of my mouth, and we talked for about 20 minutes about her kids, her work, the weather in Portland. After we hung up, I sat there for a while. She had asked near the end of the call whether I'd been getting out much, whether I was seeing people. Her voice had something in it, a small worry she was carrying. And I said, yes, I get out. I'm fine. I wonder sometimes if she puts down the phone and feels what I felt that evening in 2007. That she asked and I said fine and she accepted it. Not because she doesn't care, because it's hard to push past fine. Because you'd have to make someone uncomfortable to do it, and we don't usually want to make people uncomfortable. Eleanor was better at pushing past fine than I ever was. That was one of the things about her I didn't fully appreciate until I no longer had it. She had a patience for discomfort that I lacked. She'd stay in a hard conversation when I wanted to move past it. She'd come back to something the next day, gently, when I thought we'd let it go. She was doing a kind of work in our marriage that I didn't even see as work. I thought she was just being Eleanor. I didn't understand that it was a choice she was making every time. I don't think I'm someone who will have grand regrets. I've made peace with most of it. But I'll tell you what I think about now, in the mornings especially, when the house is quiet and the light is coming through the kitchen window the same way it always has. I think about the times I was fully there. Not many of them, but I remember them clearly. They're the ones that hold. A walk we took once along the coast, just the two of us, no particular destination. A night we stayed up late because we'd started talking and couldn't stop. An afternoon in the hospital near the end, when I held her hand for 2 hours and didn't say much of anything and it was enough. Those moments I was there, completely. Nothing else existed. And the reason I think about them isn't that they were rare. It's that they didn't have to be. That's the thing I wish I'd understood while there was still time to do something about it. Presence isn't a special occasion. It isn't something you save. It's just a choice you make or don't make in the ordinary evenings, at the kitchen table. On a Sunday morning when someone is trying to tell you about a dream they had, I kept saving it. I don't know what I was saving it for. If you've listened this long, I appreciate it. I really do. Not asking you to do anything with this. I'm not asking you to take notes or share it or apply it to your life in some organized way. I just wanted to say it out loud, finally. If something here sat with you, if something here reminded you of a person, or an evening, or a conversation you moved past too quickly, maybe just stay with that for a while. That's all. My name is Robert Hale. I'm 76 years old, and the house has been too quiet for 11 years. Asterisk if you want to leave a thought in the comments, not a lesson, just something this brought up for you, I'd like to read it. These things are easier when they're not so quiet.